Anybody know what time the 6 o'clock presentation starts?
6:08.
This is the second.
We got the advanced class.
There you go. Anybody else have 15,000 unopened emails? This is just gonna get embarrassing now. Oh, baby. Right now everybody's gonna start freaking out. It's like, he's got 60 slides. Oh my God, we're never gonna get out of here.
You want me to introduce you at this point, or you think you're good?
Oh, they all know me. That part's okay. Okay, so I was going to start at the beginning, but I haven't played a set in 2.5 years, so I don't know, my pace might be wrong. So we'll skip the foreplay and we'll go right to important stuff.
Why?
Well, sometimes the kids are coming home early. Okay, so this is not a. Who am I? Oh, I'm Scott Jones, and I make pictures. I don't like labels like artist because I don't. It sounds like way too much responsibility. So I'm a guy that makes pictures. This is not a book club. I got to tell you, is this too loud? I can lean back, right? Okay. I taught school for 27 years, and I did the math. I've played literally 24,000 sets, and I haven't played a set in 2.5 years. So the chances that I'm going to bomb are really good. My timing is not going to be right. I wrote way too much information for me to present in 40 minutes. So don't freak out. The one thing I can do is read a room. I'm really good at smelling boredom. And I found that when I was teaching, if one kid glanced at the clock, I know I either had to pick up my pacing, hit the punchline, or say something shocking. And saying something shocking always worked. That was always fun. Something along the lines of, and some kid would look at the clock, or they'd be like on their phone and say, "Do you guys know that the teachers are required to wear hats when they have sex after school in that corner?" And I'm lucky I still had a job first, but anyway. Okay, so there's a lot about abstract art people don't understand, and they jump to conclusions about it. And art is just like anything else. You got to do the homework. You get out of it what you put in, and it's just so rich. And what a guy like William de Kooning went through from 1926, he came to America. He was born in 1904. He came to America. He was an illegal immigrant that got here around 1926, and he worked in obscurity. Cold water flats, no heat, nobody knew anything about him. He had to go down to a laundromat and eat the condiments out of the laundromat for 20 years. He made fantastic paintings with no feedback. So if anybody tells you that abstract expressionism was about some sort of commercial ripoff, they have no idea what those people went through. So one of his buddies was a guy named Arshad Gorky. Gorky was an Armenian refugee, and he was his mentor. And they hung out and they went to the Met a lot, and then they would work based on the things they were seeing at the Met. And one time Gorky came into de Kooning's studio and said, "You look like you have some ideas of your own," which was a put down. How many of you have taken a ceramics class? Okay. How many of you have thrown on the wheel? I tried to throw on the wheel, but I could never get the thing centered. And as a result, I did a lot of that, okay? Now, everybody else was doing really good pots, and my pots were all falling over. So I would like present these messages to the professor and say, "Hey, look, I came up with something creative." Now, to my mind, I hadn't seen clay do that before, so I thought that was really interesting. The professor had seen it a million times before. He found no interest in it whatsoever, because it was redundant. I had the opportunity to go to Paris a couple times this year. I went to the Louvre. Anybody know the Louvre? Right? Okay. So if you go to the Louvre, there's this, and I didn't know if this was going to work until I got there. That pyramid in the middle, I Am Pei, was that the guy's name? Yeah. It's just spectacular. It's beautiful. And the entrance is right there, so everybody gathers there to get in. Well, like any good tourist, I went to YouTube to figure out what to do before I got there. And then they said, tourist hack is there's an entrance here very few people know about, so you go in there to go into the Louvre. So I went through this entrance, and like French people are, no, that's a different topic. I don't have enough time for that. But anyway, so I went in through this entrance, and I had no idea that there were only 3 galleries attached to that entrance. Now, left to my own devices, I'm wandering around in these 3 galleries. And I'm like, dude, this is the Louvre. There's a lot more to this place than this, okay? But I couldn't figure out how to get out of those 3 galleries. Now, my wife will tell you I have a terrible sense of direction. I need a lot of help when I'm trying to find my way around stuff. So somebody directed me to a staircase. I gotta figure this clicker out, I've used this before. Staircase right here, okay? And that led you up to this area, right? And then this corridor right here got you into the rest of the complex. Now the Louvre is basically a maze that was constructed over like 800 years, and it's not well organized. It's really difficult, I thought, to get around it. So you have to be directed to this corridor, and then from there the thing explodes. You get to see all the stuff you want to see. Okay, I don't mind being lost, but when I'm left to my own devices, I keep repeating the same patterns. I need help getting out of those patterns. All right? Of course, again, like any good tourist, my idea was there are certain things I wanted to see. That is really difficult because the Chardin I wanted to see was up in here, and the Rembrandts were in here, and I started out down there. So anyway, I finally found the Rembrandt that I wanted to see. It's called Slaughtered Ox. And I don't know how many of you work with oil paint, but figuring out the glazing in oil paint is unbelievably difficult. For me, unbelievably difficult. And Rembrandt was a master of it. If I could pick any painting to watch somebody paint, this would be the one because of the layering of it, the complexity of the layers in it. There was a lady there, I don't know, like I said, my patience is gonna be way out. There was a lady, I gotta tell this story. You can get a permission to go into the Louvre and paint, right? And this lady was there, the little kids are running around, it's really great. And she was copying this Rembrandt. And I swear to God, some of these galleries are really populated, like Mona Lisa, the hallways, there's a lot of people, and then there's huge sections of the Louvre nobody goes into. And this was close to one of those sections. And what happened was this lady was painting, and it was empty in the room. And I swear to God, the turpentine, she was like cleaning her brush off. She took it, she hit it. I'm like, there's no freaking way I just saw that. And I'm pretty sure she did. I don't think there was any, that was what it was. No matter what I ever do, I still look like a farmer from Iowa. I can't help it. But anyway, so the Chardin again, the glazing in this painting inspired de Kooning, Soutine. A lot of my heroes were inspired by this painting. So it was really important for me to get a chance to see it. Okay, so this is, when I was preparing this, like I said, I've taught in like 2 years, so I got all this that I want to get through in like 40 minutes, so I don't know. Here's the part where the guy starts lecturing instead of like, does anybody have any questions? Good, okay. I mean, okay. I don't know. Huh? Because we have another event at 7 o'clock, I think. I don't know.
You can go long.
Can I? Oh, you should have never said that. I'm the last guy you want to encourage. Okay, so is there a difference between a good painting and a bad painting?
Good.
Of course, right? But everybody's got their own opinion, so it's all subjective. I get so upset when people say things are objective, because what they're really trying to say, I think, take it from a guy who gets into a lot of internet arguments, what I think they're trying to say is all opinions are the same, and that's blatantly, obviously not true. Tastes are informed, okay? You gotta do, whatever. I gotta be careful not to rant. Okay, in my mind, a good painting, a good piece of art is gonna do one of two things. It's gonna change the way you see the world. You're never gonna look at something the same way after you encounter that art. And the other is, I gotta read my own notes. It's gonna give you something new every time. Oh, by the way, Norman Rockwell is the devil. I'm gonna tell you why right now. Okay, I understand why people don't like Rothko. Rothko is very easy to dismiss. If you go to a Rothko painting as an agnostic, it will not happen. You can walk by Rothko and it will look like wallpaper, easily. I've walked by a lot of Rothkos and not paid any attention to them. They do not do what Francis Bacon does. Francis Bacon will grab you by the throat. Nah, yeah, I wasn't gonna do that. Just feels good to do this again. But if you go to Rothko with a certain frame of mind, it will happen. If you stand there and look at it and are open to it, it will happen. You will see the universe in front of your eyes. This never changes. Oop. That lady has been holding that turkey for 70 years. I cannot imagine how tired her arms are. That turkey has not moved a millimeter in 70 years. Every time you go to that painting, it's the same thing. It's advertising. It's a sort of intellectual fascism. All right? That's selling in America that never existed. I'm white, and I never had that Thanksgiving. All right? Instead of what you think, what Rockwell would like you to think is going on, is this lady resents this lady because she never helps in the kitchen. This woman is worried about this guy because he's got a girlfriend at work, and oh, by the way, she's black. That's a problem. He's got red eyes because he just got back from a walk with the neighbors, all right? And he's giggling because Miley Cyrus doesn't identify as either gender. So he thinks that's hilarious. He just found that out. This guy's having an existential crisis because this guy thought it'd be a good idea to come out at Thanksgiving dinner, the whole family. Right? That's America. What I just described is America. That's not America. America in the 50s didn't resemble that. So, yeah, I got it. Students always loved it at AWC when I ranted on the artists I didn't like. I hate Rubens, Renoir, Barnett and Newman, and they would, it was hilarious. The stuff that I would teach that I didn't like, I would have to pretend to not like it more than I didn't, because they would just sit there and like, dance monkey. They just loved that stuff. It was awesome. But anyway, all right. Like I said, I haven't done this for a while. Okay, so I don't have to explain that. Once you see a Van Gogh's sunflowers, he changes the way you'll ever see sunflowers again. All right? You can't walk by that and see it the same way after you saw that. All right? And this just happened to me the other day. I was walking by this neighborhood, this nondescript human neighborhood, and immediately I saw this scene. I'm thinking, Hopper. Hopper's shaped the way I see my own neighborhood. That's what great art will do. Okay? All right, I'm gonna try to head into the woods here with this. I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, AWC made the mistake of hiring me to teach studio painting in the 1990s. I did not like teaching studio because teaching studio, I think to be a good teacher, you have to present adversarial material. So if you're teaching art history, it's like, okay, here's Francis Bacon, here's why Bacon is great. Okay, well, okay, I didn't make it, he made it, let me explain to you why I love it. When it's studio, it's you. It's like, okay, we're gonna mix all the primary colors to make the secondary colors, and your entire painting is gonna be secondary colors. That's the kind of lesson you write for a studio. Well, inevitably, what's somebody gonna ask? I like the purple in my box. I wanna use that purple. I don't wanna mix the red and the blue to make the purple. Okay, I didn't want to be that guy, so I didn't enjoy studio painting. But I'll never forget this one beautiful, lovely, older lady wanted to paint her rose. And it was very important to her to paint the rose the photograph of the rose from her garden. So she showed me how she was taught the grid and she wanted to paint a perfect rose, okay? That is external logic. What she's doing is, she's basically saying, it's the same thing as the pod, okay? And if I have enough time, I'm going to go back to some other material that I was going to present in terms of childhood drawing. A child will draw a picture of their parent. It'll be a circle, 2 eyes, and 2 legs. And every child will do that. And what will happen is, every child thinks they're developing that they're inventing it, but Piaget taught that was a stage of development that every child goes through. It feels like it's unique to you, but it's actually universal, okay? So each one of these roses is a universal beginner's stumbling through the process. Now, if you want to paint a rose that looks like a rose, you got to practice. You can't come in with a grid and a photograph and think it's going to go that way. You have to fail, okay? And what a guy like Gauguin did, oh yeah, this was another lesson I taught in elementary school. Many people will come in and say, I can't draw. Everybody's heard somebody say that, right? Well, what you would do to get a kid out of that mindset is you would give them a simple lesson, typically step by step, like how to draw Charlie Brown. The theory being, once the kid has some confidence, they'll then go on to Lucy, okay? Well, guess what happens? You want to teach them how to draw a Lucy, what do they want to do? Draw Charlie Brown over and over and over again. They get those incrustations of habit, okay? And it's really hard to break those because they're a security blanket. So what happens with a guy like Gauguin is, this is obviously a painting of dogs, right? But that face is jacked up. Nobody's dog looks like that. He's ignoring shadows in some areas. Human faces don't look like that. Perspective isn't like that. It's wrong, quote unquote. But what he did was he took his mistakes and he developed his own style, his own code, his own language, layering those mistakes on top of each other for decades. And as a result, what he ends up with is a unique language that's all his own. Okay? I fell in love with El Greco. When I went to school, I was taught El Greco is a mannerist, he's easily dismissed. Those paintings are spectacular. And they're so singular in that it looks like the kinds of mistakes he is making are only mistakes that he could make, all right? So yeah, Caravaggio, everybody loves Caravaggio. El Greco's using his own internal logic, his own internal brushstroke that's not taught from the outside. It's his own. Caravaggio, I got ruined about Caravaggio because I heard he used a projector. And maybe that shouldn't matter. I know Vermeer used a projector. Well, everybody thinks Vermeer used a projector. They found a lot of photosensitive materials on Caravaggio's paintings. So they think what he did, there's a theory, it hasn't been proven, I've gotten in arguments over this, that hasn't been proven that Caravaggio would set up a tableau in a studio and then he would project that tableau onto a surface and he'd essentially trace it, okay? There's some evidence to that. This looks like it's realistic. This one looks kind of, actually modern, very loose and modern, okay? But check out this guy's hands. How big that hand is compared to that hand. Now that might be a compositional element, okay? Like he's trying to frame the edge with a smaller hand. We got Trump's hand over here. It's the dead room.
Do it.
All right. If I get you off that book, I'm gonna be doing great.
I've pared it down to 2, just 2.
Okay, well, that's good. Anyway, this hand is much larger than that hand, which means there's a good chance he projected it, traced it, and then projected the other one separately. All right? If he ain't cheating, he ain't trying. But, I don't know. It put Caravaggio off for me. The other thing about Caravaggio is it's not singular. I've walked into museums and there'll be 15 beautiful Baroque paintings, and you have to be told which one's Caravaggio. You don't have to be told which paintings Gauguin's. You don't have to be told which paintings is Cézanne's. You know when you walk in the room. So Gauguin, I mean, you could argue about draftsmanship and accuracy and things like that, but the singular ability to break up space using color opened the door for people like Matisse. There would be no Matisse without Gauguin, and there'd be no Rothko without Matisse. So you can draw a straight line through the entire history of modern art through Gauguin. Now, anytime you talk about it, though, guy, you start talking about his personal life, but we don't have to talk about that. Okay. There's that farmer again. Okay, so this isn't working, but everybody that lives in Yuma has had this experience where you're driving west and the sun is setting and the dust. I think essentially it's dust being backlit. There's this certain color the sky takes on around dusk that is just spectacular. And in my mind, it's indiscriminate. I can't tell what color it is. It's sort of a beige, okay? So I'm thinking, I need to be on a quest for that color. Well, the beautiful thing about going to art museums, Lucian Freud said that when he went to an art museum, it was essentially going to the doctor's office. If I'm painting a hand, I go and I see how Delacroix painted a hand, and then I go back to the studio, right? So I see these paintings, and you can't tell here, but they nail that color that I was talking about. Now, I had a friend of mine brag to me about the school he went to. There was a class you could take on color that would teach you how to paint any color your eye can see. Now, I don't know how that sounds to you, but that sounds really hard, okay? To take a certain mixture of paint and come up with an exact color your eye sees. He was taught that. He claims. He's not that good, so probably lying. Somebody could have taught me how to paint that, to make that color in a palette. But then that's external logic. That's somebody else's solution to a problem, okay? What I needed to do was figure it out on my own terms, all right? That color belongs to the person who taught it to you. So I'm stumbling around finding this color and then coming up with this other stuff that may or may not be good. I don't know. I think I'm pretty focused while I'm doing it. That's sort of the criteria I use. But then there's this level of invention. This was pretty weird. I'm gonna try not to get emotional because that's just awkward and strange. But my father passed away. How can you start any sentence like that and not start crying? My father passed away about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And we took his ashes. He loved to fish, and we took his ashes.
Today.
Today?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Oh, that'll help. Thanks. Yeah, 2 years ago today. He passed. Yeah, my man died 2 years ago today. Anyway, we took his ashes to his favorite fishing spot and poured them into the river. Now, I had envisioned this in my head. I'd seen this in my head 100 times, 1,000 times before we did it. And what I envisioned happening was our family standing around, pouring these ashes into the river, and me looking up and seeing the vastness of the river that is a tributary of the Mississippi that'll end up in the Gulf of Mexico. It's gonna end up all over the world. And I looked up and everything went flat, boom. All the trees, the hills, the water just went boosh. And what happened with Cezanne is, Cezanne invented a system that said that's exactly how your eyes work. Now, what's interesting about Cezanne is he sucked. When he was young, he was terrible. Van Gogh was terrible. Look at their early work. An average sophomore in high school who's a decent art student draws better than those guys did when they were young. It took him 20 years to figure that out. That's early Cezanne, and that's late Cezanne. And that's exactly what I saw when I looked up after pouring my old man's ashes into the river. And instead of thinking some deep poetic thought about my dad, I'm thinking, Cezanne was right. That was the only thought that popped into my head. So it definitely changed the way I saw things. Okay, I got other stuff after that? Yeah, whatever. Okay, let me start at the beginning. I got enough time. The pacing's not bad, right? Oh, I'm okay. I won't torture you with all this, I promise. Maybe. Okay, so obviously art history book starts at the beginning. And the beginning is cave paintings. And when I was a student, I was under the impression that basically cave paintings were people doodling on the walls of caves they inhabited near the entrance because they were bored. It couldn't be further from the caves, okay? This is the Hall of Bulls at Lascaux. Lascaux was dated to 17,000 years ago, but that's not the earliest. They found one, Lindsay and I were talking about the other day, they carbon dated one cave paintings in Indonesia to 47,000 years ago, or something like that. But that's just recent. Anyway, this is not a folly. This is not something frivolous. This is something very deliberate and intentional and difficult. Whoever put these drawings in these areas, number one, they'll never know why, okay? But you have to go down a shaft to get to this drawing to see it. And imagine how dark it is here. Incredibly dangerous, okay? Great intentionality. Chauvet, I think, is dated to like 33,000 years ago. This is on like the 4 football fields of a dangerous cave, and they're finding this all along the sections of it. Okay, what fascinated me when I taught this was the decorative elements. Okay, so you got these dots, and you might think of it in terms of they're decorating the horse. Well, if they're decorating the horse, what's going on with this? All right, and this. And then they find these kinds of marks, right? And the best description I have figured out for this is essentially it's what happens when you put your fingers and press them against your eyes. Everybody's done that, right? Essentially, they're recording hallucinations at great effort, okay? So this isn't that old. This is from, I think it's, I'm trying to remember, Australian. It's like a couple thousand years old. But obviously, these are very abstract. It's not realism. Okay, caves are non-inviting places. People would go into these things. There were bears. They found bones of like miniature wolves. It's a great metaphor for your subconscious. All right. What are these two people doing? They're playing. You know what I see? Two people hallucinating. I don't know whether you remember this, but I remember little green pieces of plastic turning into actual wars, okay? The little girl that's doing this, that is not a piece of plastic with small clothes. That is a baby, all right? Human beings code switch. It'll go from green plastic to the Vietnam War like that. I spent hours. A lot of what I do in my own painting is basically what I did when I was a little kid. I lived in Iowa. I hadn't mentioned that. And there was a lot of rain, and I'd watch the sediment go down the drain of the street for hours. And I'd build little dams and watch what happened to the sediment. That's the same thing I'm doing now, all right? A fascinating part of this is when a kid draws a picture of their parents, they're not drawing a picture of anything. They are making them. In their mind, and I don't know, I can't recall that part, but I've seen this a million times. They're creating their mother. Which one of these two is the mother, by the way? Which one's the dad? Mom's on the left? This one? Or this one? Which left? Well, this one? That one's... Because of... Why, Wes? You did it, man. You did it yourself. Breasts? Okay. Fair. Okay. That's us thinking, okay? What they're thinking, and I taught this, and I watched this Piaget in development over thousands of kids. This is mom. You know why? She has hair. Dad's hair is not as prominent. These are eyes, nose, and torso and legs. Every kid goes through the same level of development. And as they get older, they become aware of arms and hands. So you can tell where your kid is in their development, their awareness of their own bodies based on how they draw. And oh, by the way, for you young parents out there, once your kid makes a drawing and there's a baseline or horizon line, they're ready to read. That's like a scientific behavioral thing people have measured over time. What do you see? Like any teacher, that's a trick question, right? Because when I ask that, people typically will say a tree, a hill, a valley, a house, a village, whatever. That's not what you're seeing. What you're seeing is a digital projection of a photograph of a painting of a hill, a house, and a tree. And you might, anytime I say that, some students are like, oh God, what a smart aleck. But it's not a small distinction to make. Because what's happening is, there's a type of hallucination going on. What I'm looking for in my own art is the cracks in reality that I can manipulate, okay? And the cracks come from where we code switch, all right? Think about it. There's numbers on this that I can find that if I take it into a special place, I can come out with food. I have different numbers on this. I take it into a different special place, I can come out with a card. car. Reality switches all the time, right? You drive around, you look down, you see a dot on this. Back in the day, I'm driving around with a map on my lap, right? I'll look down and I say, okay, there's the corner of Avenue B and 24th. And then I look up and it's something completely different. Same thing, but it's two different codes, right? The biggest, and one of them's here, the biggest code switching I ever experienced in my life was raising children. Because about the time you get used to handling a 6-month-old, you look up and they're a year and a half. You figure out how to deal with a kid that's a year and a half old and they're 5, and so on. They keep switching on you. The reality is never fixed, okay? It's in your own life. John Malkovich was asked on his 60th birthday, what does he make of his own life? And he said, what I make of it is I'm amazed at how many lives it's been, how many lives I've lived. And my parents passed away recently, so I got all these pictures. I'm going through these pictures and I'm going, I remember that reality. Where's that? That guy's nowhere to be found now. That's a whole different world. I've been a lot of different people to a lot of different people, okay? And then I look in the mirror and I said, no, I was the same asshole as well. So, people, you can't be neutral on Jack. I make these claims. It's hard to be neutral on Jackson Pollock. People either feel very strongly about him, either way. They hate him or they love him. It's hard not to talk about Pollock and not be apologetic for him, but I think I understand some things about him. How does a spider start its day? Here's how a spider does not start its day. A spider does not start its day by waking up and saying, what is my purpose in life? My parents made me get this engineering degree and now I'm stuck spinning these webs all day. This sucks. I don't know who I really am. I don't like spinning webs. I want to do something else. This is not who I am. That's not what a spider does. A spider is programmed by intuition to do this. They have no aesthetic. They're not worried about making something beautiful, okay? But it is spectacularly beautiful by design. But it's not his design. He's just doing what his instincts tell him to do. What the spider is doing is he's solving an engineering problem. How do I spin this web and get it to connect and stand up so I can catch my food? All right? What Jackson Pollock is doing is solving an engineering problem. If I throw paint a certain distance, how can I keep that line of paint even? How can I create harmony, rhythm, balance with a line of paint? Okay? So the code isn't, is this a picture of me? The code is, how do I manipulate the elements of art to make something beautiful, instinctually? We had this spectacular experience 2 summers ago, last summer. We went to the aquarium in Monterey. I don't know if you've been there, but they got this huge fish tank, right? 55 million gallons or whatever. And these sardines come through, and they're about the size of your hand, maybe a little bigger. And they're doing these intricate maneuvers, darting. There's like 5,000 or 6,000 of them, and they all maintain this distance from each other that's this far without ever colliding, right? How do they do that? Well, there's some sort of intuitive mechanism they have where they're feeling each other's electromagnetic. I don't know, I'm no scientist. But it's by intuition, right? There's no plan. Human beings make plans. That's what makes us different than the rest of nature. We have an idea about memory that, and again, I'm not a biologist, but I'm guessing the way our memories work do not bear any resemblance to the way a spider's memory works or a fish's memory works, all right? We make plans. We have expectations for the future. Other animals don't do that. That makes us very easy to manipulate, okay? So what this guy is doing is he's telling a lie. He's looking at an image of this there and trying to reproduce it there. This will always and forever be lines and shapes and colors. It will never be anything else. The idea that it's something else is a hallucination. It's a lie. If you can get other people to buy that, to understand that, recognize it, you've written a code that other people accept, all right? This guy's writing a code too, but he's cutting out the middleman. He's going right to the lines and shapes and colors and finding beauty within that. So what you end up with Pollock is not a painting of somebody walking down the street. the energy of that, you have a painting of energy, using paint as an engineering tool. All right, so what do we have here? These two things, they're the same thing. They're colored mud smeared on a flat surface. When you get ready to make a painting, you're entering the arena. That moment before the brush hits the surface or the pencil hits the surface, that moment is shared by you, Picasso, Van Gogh, Rembrandt, those people in that cave. We all share that same moment. But what happens is, after that first mark is made, it's like a chess match. When people play chess, everybody starts with the same board. 3 moves in, the possibilities are infinite, right? So what this is a redundancy, a repeated pattern that feels unique to the person who's doing it, but in fact is repeated by every other person that's ever done this. This has become singular. Only one person can arrange colored mud in that manner, okay? But again, it's code switching. What's the difference between a regular piece of paper and a $100 bill? There is none. It's in your head. We all agree on a $100 bill. That print means something that this print doesn't. But it's phenomenologically speaking, it's the same thing. What's different about it is it's a lie. Or it's not a lie. It's just an agreed upon hallucination. All right. Oh, this is just embarrassing. You guys getting bored? If I go much, yeah, 10 minutes, right? Yeah, okay. Do I do this? Do I? Okay. Now, is there anything else I really want to hear? No, I think that's good. Let's do it. Okay, so I was born in 1958. In 1969, people walked on the moon, and that captured everyone's imagination. And there was a toy, you guys might remember this, Scott, you might remember this, Major Matt Mason. Is that right? No? Here we go. It's my idiosyncratic thinking. Okay, so there's basically this army guy that's an astronaut. And I was, doing that hallucination thing where it was the astronaut, and I had him sit on my driveway, and I took a Polaroid picture. Somebody gave me a Polaroid camera. I took a picture of the guy, and it came out red. Like the background came out red, and I took it to school and I showed it to a kid. The kid's like, "You didn't go to the moon, you didn't go to Mars, man." But I could tell there was just enough of a question in his head. He thought, "This is interesting. How did you do that?" I thought, "Oh, I got it. That's cool." So I did a bunch of those. Now here's the problem with this. This is what makes this embarrassing. If I was 6 or 8 years old, maybe. In 1970, I was 11. Okay, I have a developmental problem. Alright? So anyway, what happens when you go to an art museum, typically what people will do is they will spend a lot of time reading the wall texts. They will spend more time, when I watch this, I've done this a lot, they will spend more time reading the wall text than actually looking at the paintings. And I'm thinking, well, let's manipulate that, which is what the lettering's about. I had to show in Santa Ana, and everybody was very nice. It was well attended. But everybody hung out where the lettering was, because they would stand there and read it. And I had this voice in the back of my head pop up, and I swear to God, I never would have expected it. It was not a conscious thought. But some voice that felt like it was from outside of me said, "They're buying it." And it was like the level of cynicism that was in that voice offended me. But, it's just paint on a wall, that's all it is, okay? But it's significant in that human beings are easily fooled. People will see Jesus in pieces of toast, right? Well, the apparatus in your mind that sees Jesus in a piece of toast is the same apparatus that sees a piece of paper as being worth $100. It's the same operation, okay? So the human's ability to plan and have expectations and have memory lend themselves to being manipulated into ideas about life after death. Because life after death is just an extension of the plan. Life is so good and so wonderful. And in the Nile Valley for about 3,000 years, it was so plentiful that they did not want to let go of life. And they built this spectacular body of art. That's way too far. They built this spectacular body of art based on the illusion that you're going to live afterwards. Nobody was supposed to see that art. Once they put them in the tombs, they were never supposed to unearth that. You guys have been very patient. I'm still stumbling on this information. Let me teach it like 5 more times, and then come back, and it's going to be great. There'll be no crying, no emotional outbursts. It'll be wonderful. So anyway, where was I going? I think that might be it, really. That's the meat and potatoes. Yeah, I think so. So listen, thanks. It means a lot to me you guys came out. It's really sweet. You can tell my bits are not well rehearsed at all. I got a long way to go, but everybody bombs. It's okay. Everybody good? Yes, ma'am.
Can we do questions?
Oh, I would love that.
Because you just said a lot of things. So you talk a lot about code switching, and now that I'm like staring at the work behind you, a lot of your work is, from my viewpoint, is very deliberate, but then there's also a lot of stream of consciousness is what I'm viewing. Can you talk about where you come into that work? Because now that I understand how you're viewing art history and viewing art, I'm curious if you could talk a little about your process and your creative style.
Thank you for asking that, Lindsay. I learned very early on I was not the best artist in the room. I was never the kid that could draw a picture of Adolf Hitler and make it look like Adolf Hitler. There was actually a kid that did that in high school, and I thought, God, I'll never be able to do that. But I understood immortality, that like Van Gogh's paintings will live forever. And I'm thinking, I want whatever that is. I don't know. You can't control for talent, but I understood that I could never make a painting. I could start out with a painting in my head, and it'll never look like that. And you can either get really frustrated by that or roll with it. And what a painting will do is it'll give you something as you go. Mark spoke about this too at his talk, right? It's a conversation, all right? So what I'm looking for is ambiguity, chaos, and then where I can insert my own, like something will get signaled. It's like, okay, I can work with that. I can build on that. So where I mean, you're always trying to get to a spot in your head where it just feels right. You know, and every artist in the room knows what I'm talking about. You know, it just feels right. And you can't really, that's not deliberate or premeditated in any way. It's not for me. For somebody like Caravaggio or I don't know, somebody better than me, I guess. Yeah, you can premeditate it. But I'm always looking for that hook. It's like, ooh, I didn't expect that drip to do that. Now what can I build from that? So it's never about conscious intention. It's always about trying to get to some subconscious level of, this is telling me something I hadn't seen before. My own rule for my own work is, if I've seen it before, it's wrong. Now, if somebody's gonna look at this and say, dude, it's so redundant. You know, it's all subjective. But in my mind, I have a mark in my head is, okay, if I've seen it before, I've got to disassemble it and turn it into something else. Thanks.
Even like with your word choices, are those that fluid, or are those premeditated?
There's an existentialist concept that will tell you that it's easier to tell people what you're not than what you are. And what I would do is I would look through reading material like, nope, and then something would just go, yeah, I don't know what, but yeah, and that's what I would use. So it's not like I'm trying to tell you anything. Julian Schnabel said, I don't paint to tell you what I know, I paint to find out what I don't know. And that really applies to me. I'm painting to find out what I don't know. Anybody else? I was going to ask my ones. No?
I have millions of questions, but Isaac has
I have a
one.
follow-up on it. It's something that we've talked about before, and I'd like to quote it for the room. It's about the creative process, your creative process. I really like learning about the little eddies and the little dams, because I hadn't heard that one before.
Right.
But this is from the origin of the work of art. We've spoken about it many times. And I wonder how you think this perhaps applies to you or doesn't. So it is precisely in great art, and only such art is under consideration here, that the artist remains inconsequential as compared to the work, almost like a passageway that destroys itself in the creative process for the work to emerge.
Everybody's, yeah. I mean, there's an interview with Dylan from 65, and somebody's like, you know, the press is just beating this kid up, because he's in over his head. You can just tell. You look at Dylan, you think young Dylan is a smart aleck. It's a defense mechanism. He's being overwhelmed.
What about agency, the voice? The
Like, who cares? Nobody gives a shit what I say. What am I going to tell you that you don't know? Pick up your trash. Be nice to other people. I got nothing new, man. All I'm trying to do is to get to what Carl Jung was talking about, the collective subconscious. It's like if I get something new that you haven't seen before, and everybody goes, yup, then I hit it. But I can't do it through deliberation. And what Dylan said was, it might have been Ginsberg said to him, it feels like something's flowing through you when it's right? And the muses, the Greek muses, it's the idea that they're flowing through you. You get out of the way. If you're thinking, I asked my kid one time, I says, what do you think about when you're at home plate waiting for the pitch? He says, are you kidding me? You can't be thinking about anything, right? You're just waiting for the pitch. And you're trying to get yourself out of your way. That's another reason I hated teaching studio, because people said things to me in studio when I was in college that I still carry with me in the studio today, 100 years later. It's like it still holds me back. And I know every college professor that says something flippant to some kid that just jammed them up, and they might not ever get over it.
I just think that the truth of your work is distinctly Scott Jones. And that comes through regardless if it's one of the texted ones, if it's one of the Wobbly Women, my favorite series. You can walk into a room and know that it's yours.
The only thing I can say about that, Isaac, is I've been doing this for a really long time. And that's really all I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised. If I walk into a room like this and I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good. You know, I don't know. I have no idea. Anybody else? Lindsay.
So I'm looking at this collection right now. Can you talk about where it's a bookend in your current artistic career? You've been doing this for a long time. I'm sure your studio at home is still full of stuff and you're constantly making. Where does this kind of series fall into play in your personal growth as an artist, and where do you see yourself
Well, that's a great question.
No pressure.
Well, everybody's going to tell you the same thing. The only goal is to keep doing it. Keep doing it. You know, people hustle because they have to eat, okay? I've been really lucky. I don't have to hustle anymore. I taught, if you couldn't tell, better than I did tonight. But I don't have to hustle. I don't give a shit. I really don't.
But I think that puts you in a unique position to create what you actually want to create. And that's such a...
Well, I look at
That's a
Mark,
privilege of
man.
that.
Mark gets done with his talk, everybody walks in there, and all these red dots start popping up. I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen to me. But yeah, you know, I don't, it's a serious question, it deserves serious consideration. I'm still trying to make it better. There's always an idea of making it better. That's what Paris is about, you try to set I have no idea why I do that. You try to set a mark in your head, and I don't want to be a kid drawing his mom. Isn't this cool? Look at my drawing. I don't want to be that guy. It's like, you see Caravaggio, it sucks, look at this. That's where I'm at, that's what I'm thinking. But you gotta know how they did it first. How did Gauguin get there? What were the steps? What did de Kooning do to get to where he was at? And he was plagued by self-doubt. He never got over it. De Kooning didn't start drinking until he was successful. And then he basically killed himself with alcohol over time. And that wasn't until he broke. When he was in a room by himself and everybody left him alone, he was fine. And so there's that. Yes, sir.
I'm going to need to go.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. No, not for going, but for coming.
But I would say how much I learned listening to you. I love the style of your narrative, the way you have given us your journey.
Well, I appreciate it.
And your explanations of where you were and where you are and where you're going. I just love it.
Thank you. Lindsay was kind enough to provide me with a podium, so I had a place to hide. But it's very, yeah, you don't have to tell any artists. You hang your stuff on the wall, you're like terrified. And what's that?
Turn on the mic, too.
Yeah, yes, you did. I've heard such things. Not we don't have time for that at this point. But you know, I'm pretty thick-skinned by this point. I've heard a lot of stuff about my own work, and it's like, okay. But thank you, Mike. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah. Anybody else? Who was it? Mark?
I'm actually piggybacking on both of them. They talk about the narrative and what Lindsay asked, and I'm curious, what does this body work represent within your path? Is this where you are currently, or what are you working on currently?
What I'm working on
What
currently.
does this represent? Let's start with
Okay, what does this represent? It represents. I really have no idea. It sounds like a smart ass thing to say, but I really have no clue. I have no idea. It's like, just do it. Just do it. Find something new. Find something new. Find something new. And to be honest with you, Mark, when I look at this, printmaking was done because it's too hot in my studio to oil paint in the summer. So I switch into a different medium. I mean, I can talk about it technically. What it's saying about me or my journey, you know, I am flattered that somebody like you would look at this and say, he's on a journey. That's flattering. That's good enough for me. It's like, you just sit there saying, this is just totally worth nothing and easily dismissed and nobody cares. That would be, you know, something I've heard before, but, you know, coming from you, that would hurt. But the idea that there are dots, maybe I'll figure it out later. See, that's one of the reasons people always talk about artists getting rich when they die. Dude, that's not some sort of conspiracy against us. It takes time. It doesn't take a lifetime. They talk about cathedral thinking, right? Those people started building those medieval cathedrals. The people that designed those cathedrals never saw them anywhere close to completion. It took hundreds of years to complete those things. I cannot stand here and tell you, I have no idea what this means. I have no clue.
So what are you working on now?
I'm working on, what am I working on now? No, that sounds like such
Are you working
all the time, constantly.
What is it like? Is it about?
Oil,
It's always new.
I hope.
Is it like, are you focused on color? Is it texture? Is it pattern?
No, dude, it's
like
color.
What's floating your boat right?
It's always color, Mark. It's always color. Line comes, and you can't see it in all of this. I'm going to talk to Lindsay about booking a show down the road so I have something to work toward, you know. Line, for whatever reason, if you look at my early stuff, I understand line. What's the guy's name? Egon Shelley? Is that the guy's name? It's like, yeah, I feel that in my gut. Color is the mystery. You know, I look at Cezanne, Mondrian. I cannot figure out color. The one thing I will tell you, every time I look at anything I'm showing, it's like, the color's wrong. That's the first thing that pops in my head. Like, what's all this orange, and why is it always so off? Well, orange is skin tone that's basically screwed up. That's what it is for me. It's like, I'm gonna be working on this orange until they pour me into the river. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the question. Just the idea that you would think it's a good question is, for me, is flattering. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that color is important to you. When I see your work, I see a lot of lines.
Yeah.
That's really more of a focal point that I see, and there's a lot of emotion, and and every line you draw has emotion, a different emotion. So you mentioned a lot of color, but I really see a lot more line and expressive. Now, when you create, is this your lifestyle, where you're at right now, and you tell me whatever issues you're going through, do you feel they represent through your line, and you interpret them into your painting?
Well, you use the word emotional, and it's like, I mean, I can't talk in public and not cry now. That's kind of weird, you know? Yeah, there's energy, you know?